I'm one of the most relatable people on earth. The only thing is that perhaps the fact that I come into politics with ideas and substance, and people are not used to that. You see, they're more interested in the personal things and all of that. And I think, but even in the last election, I danced shaku shaku with Falls and Lila, Johnson. I did all sorts of things. I danced in the marketplaces. There was nothing I didn't do. I'm one of the most relatable persons, so I tend to be a bit reserved. I may not be very outwardly animated, other than when I'm talking about Nigeria, but I'm very, very relatable if you know me and if you get to know me. There are many interviews I've given which are soft interviews. And I would recommend that people who are interested in my candidacy, look at those kinds of interviews, soft human side interviews. I gave one recently in The Sun, just this past month of May, where I discuss about fashions and I say that I'm the drip lord and I have no apologies. I like to look good. Where I talk about, loving to dance, I love Goya Menor. We see how the thing goes. Those kinds of things. Many people may not know that side of me because they see me as a professor or as a central banker and all that. But I'm just a very cool guy. I can tell you that. Very relatable.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That was brief, that was direct, and that speaks to what people want to know. Alegbe, Professor Alegbe. Is she there? Hello, everybody. I'm here. Hello. Okay, go on. You have the floor. Go on. Ask your question. Yes. Thank you very much, and I'm really honored to be on this platform again, and especially to be speaking to the Prof himself. You're welcome. Now, let me just point out something. The last person who spoke talked about money. Talked about not the last person, the person before the last. Talked about big money politics. Was that you that spoke just before Bruce? Allegedly. All right. So you talk about big money, big men, and big money politics. I just want to point out to Nigerians that the money these people are putting down right now, that looks like they're generals, they're this, they're that, they're astute, they're go-getters. It's just a collateral. At some point, if you elect them into office, they'll take their money back. Let me just stop there then. Oh yes, on that. Second, the question I have for Prof is based on his competencies, and of course he has outlined the functions of Mr. President. I want him to throw a little bit of light, just a little bit of an insight into what his foreign policy would look like. His presidency. That part we don't seem to talk about much. Thank you, Prof.
Oh, that's very good. We don't talk about foreign affairs a lot, and it shows how far and how much the quality of politics and the context for leadership in this country has degraded. In the 60s, foreign policy was a major factor in elections in this country. In the time of Zik and Tafawa Balewa and Awu and so on. Even in the 70s, military foreign policy was huge. We were a part of the frontline states around South Africa, honorary member of the frontline states, because of the role we played in ending apartheid. Even in Shehu Shagari's presidency. But as Nigeria, you see, my attitude to foreign affairs is that for you to be powerful abroad, you must be strong at home. Foreign policy is a reflection of the realities of domestic policy. That is one. So as Nigeria has become weaker, we have become less interested in foreign affairs because we're struggling for our own survival. Inflation is so high. The Naira exchange rate has gone through the roof. Many people faced with those kinds of basic difficulties would have a hard time understanding, the dynamics of the United Nations or bilateral diplomacy. But when I become president, one of my major goals is to project Nigeria's power and influence abroad. But I will not do it in a vacuum. That's why we must first build a nation at home, a unified country where we have a common national ambition a country where we have agreed on what Nigeria means to each and every one of us, and where we feel that our rights and our lives matter, and that we are part of this country and we have a stake. We must first of all do that. We must build the economy back. The economy is in tatters. We must secure our borders and our territory. If you don't do these three basic things, you cannot project power and influence abroad. So for me, all of them are aligned in a continuum, So obviously, with my experience and my knowledge of international relations, in which I have a PhD, by the way, from the London School of Economics, my vision of foreign policy is that Nigeria, I take a race-based view of the world, you see, and I'm a realist in international relations. What is the black race are also God's children. They are entitled to a place in the world. Why are we poor when the whites and the Asians and everybody else is getting richer? Do you see the point? And the problem is our leadership internally and our refusal to engage with intellectual things. Ideas matter. So if you talk and somebody says, this man, they blow grammar, you know that this is a major enemy of Nigeria. Because if you go to every country that is great and prosperous, they are led by people blowing grammar. So why would you refer to that in a pejorative way, as if you're yabbing the person? You see? So foreign policy idea is that Nigeria is the first son of the black race. We have to prosper in order to matter. And then we have to project our mattering to the world. We have to say through our foreign policy that we will project and defend Nigeria's national interest. Even though I'm a multilateralist, I've been in the UN for many years, and I respect the United Nations, but I will, as president, put Nigeria's interest first. Because I believe that what we have is not in reality an international community, but in fact an anarchical society in which we are of states, in which we have controlled anarchy, as we say in international relations. Even in the UN, countries are pushing justly for their own interest. So we have to put our own interest first. We must defend our territory. We will show the world our own innovations, and from there we will earn respect. We will earn respect from our soft power, our great music and our great musicians, our great Nollywood artists. All that matters, but we must also move into technology. We must move into industrial manufacturing. And from there, we become an economic power to reckon with. And with economic power, we will get political power in the world. Let me give you an example. South Korea, when I was in the UN, South Korea became a state in 1948. Yeah? They did not join the UN for more than 30 years. They joined the UN only in 1990. But by 1997, they had produced the Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon. Why? Because they were a power and they were strategically aligned to the United States. I will not allow Nigeria. I will have good relations and Nigeria will have good relations with the rest of the world. But I will not allow Nigeria to become a dumping ground for goods from any particular country of the world and say that, I will not allow Nigeria to become a satellite of any part of the world because we're borrowing so heavily from them. You see? So I'll be a bit more conscious of Nigeria's confidence starting from home. That is my idea of foreign policy. And I will invest in our diplomatic infrastructure, the foreign missions, our diplomats abroad. You cannot have situations where our diplomats are not paid their salaries and they're owing rents on their houses and so on. This kind of thing, I will increase the funding for foreign affairs. Right now, it's less than 1% of the budget, but I'm going to increase it massively. And we're going to have a foreign service commission separate from the civil service commission or the public service commission. The foreign service is a special entity and it should be treated specially. My late father started his professional life as a foreign service officer in our country after independence, and he was in the foreign ministry for about 10 years. First in Nigeria, served in Switzerland, served in Washington, and later on in the East region, the Republic of Biafra. So Yes, foreign policy is very important, but it must be based on a stomach that is full. You cannot be an effective projector of national power on an empty stomach. 100 million Nigerians are living in extreme poverty. How can you be respected around the world when poverty is your economy? So these are the things we have to, our foreign policy must be based on the domestic stability and progress of Nigeria. That's my approach to foreign policy.
Thank you very much, Prof. You've just written a book on powernomics, and what that means is that you have traced the trajectory of economics to politics, to criminal justice system, to media, to education, in order to ensure that Nigerians don't commit socioeconomic suicide by boasting over nothing. The reason why we are not recognized as a real power globally is simply because we don't have a foreign policy. Because we cannot agree, even as a nation. We have been in politics for years now.
Exactly.
So we are looking for a leader who can set us in the right path. First, to fix the economy, and then later we can begin to project our power. Thank you very much for that. I hope someone took notes, and I believe we'll hear more of this as we progress. Let me call on one of my professors as well, someone who I've been consulting with for many years, and someone who is also a media practitioner. You have the floor.
Oh my God, I'm not a professor. Prof. Kingsley Moghalu is my friend and my brother, and I have a lot of respect for him. He's an amazing human being. I can't praise him enough. And I'm quite happy to hear that he is pushing aggressively again. Yes, Prof.
Go ahead.
This is Gary. I can tell you.
Nice to see you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, good. So my question is going to be following on from what the other lady asked you earlier with regards foreign policy. I have read your book on emerging Africa, and I know the projection that you made and the analysis you made in terms of our world view. And it resonates with me because it is what it is in terms of the fact that I've spent more than 20 years of my life abroad as a diasporan Nigerian, and all of us who live in diaspora, we're really keen on seeing a Nigeria that has a worldview that is used to feed into how we're presented to the rest of the world. Whether you're walking on an empty stomach or you have so much abundance, it doesn't matter. The perception of your nation is what will determine how your citizens are treated abroad. How do you want your understanding, which you explained so excitingly great in your book, how do you want it to feed into how we're projected abroad and what people think of Nigerians, irrespective of the level of poverty in the country?
Well, good. But if you see that world view, if you remember that book, it's called Emerging Africa. How the global economy's quote unquote last frontier can prosper and matter. So even the world view, in my own view, is linked to prosperity. You see? So it does matter whether you're rich or poor. You can be poor and be self-respecting and be respected. Yes, I understand that. But it is better if you're rich as a country and at least you're stable, decent, prosperous. Now, in the matter of this worldview that I talked about, it's a philosophical idea, a way of seeing the world, who we are in the world as Nigerians. Where have we come from? Where are we going? Why is the world the way it is? How are we going to get to our ambition? What is the gap between where we are and the transformation state? You know, we see in other countries like Malaysia or Indonesia or some other countries, Israel and so on, Singapore. What's the gap? What's the value system? What's the strategy? What's the knowledge system that get us there? These are all philosophical questions. As president of Nigeria, I have already, in my book, Build, Innovate and Grow, I have already articulated a simplified worldview that will be taught to our children in schools. from primary school to secondary school, and make them proud of Nigeria. Give them a sense of what being a Nigerian means, of our own history and our own global ambition as the first son of the black race, as I like to describe Nigeria. And it is this attitude that will make us work hard, unite ourselves up the things that divide us as a country. Because when you have a national ambition, in America, the whites and the blacks are always clashing. But when you talk about America, the idea of America, everybody will shift their sword. You see, this is what we need in Nigeria. In Nigeria, what does it for us is soccer. But it's too fleeting, it's too transient. We need a permanent soccer type feeling about Nigeria. What is it that makes us proud to be Nigerians? And this is what we will project wherever we are, whether in the halls of international diplomacy or whether as diasporans. This is the worldview we bring into the world, that Nigeria matters, that we will win in the world, and that we will be a dominant player in international affairs and in the world economy. That's the worldview I bring the president of Nigeria. And it begins from inculcating this view among Nigerians through education and through media. And that process is called manufacturing consent. That's what it's called.
Okay, so very quickly then, just before I'll let you go on with other people, I'm keen on this issue of character and the kind of human beings that will be described as Nigerians. The impression abroad today is that a lot of Nigerians are 419. They're criminals, they're loud, they're aggressive, and I get into conversation with non-Nigerians, whether they're fellow Africans or they are other people around the world, because I travel a lot. I get into conversation with them, and what I hear is, "You're not Nigerian." And I'm like, "Why?" And they say, "Because you're not a typical Nigerian." I'm like, "I am a typical Nigerian." Exactly. No matter how good you think I am, this is what Nigerians are. So don't begin to make it look like I'm an exception. I am not an exception, because all my brothers and sisters and siblings and cousins and friends are like me. But how do we begin to make it such that you have 4 years, most likely, or possibly 8 years if you emerge the president of Nigeria? And in your 4 or 8 years in office, how do you create the kind of system that would ensure that quality will be a key issue, character will be a key issue? We won't have a situation where people will be appointed because they're friends or cronies, but rather because of the capacity to deliver results. And I know, and I'm going to say this publicly, that I met with President Buhari 3 different occasions before he became the president. And he told me personally that he is going to do everything to make sure that all those who stole our money will be arrested and put in jail. That every single one of them will return that money, and the lesson will be taught such that there will never be anybody that will be interested in stealing from our national treasure again. And he has delivered none of it. So that really broke my heart. I'd like you to make it public now. What will be your own plan, your strategy, and how you will deliver that to make sure that Nigeria gets better?
Yes, we must become a country of character, a country where values matter. So we must return to the matter of values. How do you do that? You do it first by setting an example as a leader. That's why I was saying to Shehu Okimbaloye the other day on television that there are 2 ways you will know that my presidency is different. The first will be the team. It will be a powerful team. The second will be the tone that I will set from the next morning, the morning after I'm sworn in. So I believe that we should teach ethics in our schools as a compulsory subject, in a simple way in primary and in a more complex way in secondary school. That is part of character formation. We have to form the character of Nigerians once again, And then, like I said, fighting corruption is not just about determination to fight corruption. You fight corruption through institutions that actually work. So we must strengthen our institutions. It should not be the president doing everything. The central bank must function the way it ought to function. The EFCC, I would not tolerate a central bank governor trying to do politics while sitting on the seat of the governor. You know, that's just wrong. Everybody knows that. Why is it happening? Why is it still there? You know, these are the things. Actions speak louder than words. So we have to have a judicial system that functions and is independent. The EFCC should not be politicized. They should simply do their job. So strengthening institutions is a very important way of building the character of a country. Teaching ethics, getting people to internalize values, you know, and a lot of this will be done through the educational system and through the media. The media will have to help us. We must change the narrative of our country and the narrative on our country. So we do it through education, we do it through strengthening institutions, we do it through the media, and so on. So these are the approaches I will use. Fighting corruption, I will use a lot of technology to fight corruption. You see, you know, when people award contracts, and I said that when I become president, we're going to maintain the current price of everything in a database. And if a contract is to be awarded, we will check it against the database. If the price of any item is more than 30% above the price in the database, then you hear the smell. You see? So these are ways to fight corruption. And you fight corruption through impartial accountability. Making sure, and the first people I will use to set an example will be people around me. When I become president, the first people I will sleep with one eye open are the people who are closest to me. That's where it always starts, because they have the access to you. So people will come through them, and then they begin to sell their access. Then they begin to get into corrupt actions. But when you take very strong action against a couple of them very early, people will recognize that this is real. It's not just rhetoric.
Hey, great. Thank you very much, Sir Akintemi, and thank you very much, Professor Kingsley Moghalu, for the answers that you've given. Let me go to Adedoyin. Adedoyin, are you there?
Yes. Okay. Can I go ahead now?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay. I think first and foremost, I'd like to commend Mr. Moghalu for actually taking time out to engage with his supporters or people in the space. That's something that's very rare, so we'd like to give you kudos for that. And secondly, most likely just congratulate you on actually winning the primaries, because going by political history, you know, having that political name goes a long way. So congratulations on that. My question lays back to the fact that, you know, aside identifying that we have a leadership problem in Nigeria, there's also the issue of the institution, right? So if there's, you know, some form of miraculous permutation or chain of events that puts you in power as the president, you're still going to be battling with the institutions. You're still going to be battling with the media, because the truth about it is that the media structures how people's perspectives are. That's why not having a whole lot of airtime or having a whole lot of responses hasn't been able to trigger that relatability between you and some supporters. So my question goes to, what policies would you put in place to actually tackle the establishments? Some people might want to call them cabals or whatever. Or for me, I'll just probably say, what policies do you have to put in place to challenge the institution that has decayed over the years?
Yes. Well, thank you. The first thing you must do is to appoint competent people to head those institutions. And, you know, your vision translates downwards into those institutions through those institutional leaders that you as president have appointed. That's number one. Number two, you strengthen the institutions by respecting them. You don't use your presidential power to short circuit the functions of the National Assembly. You don't use your presidential power to short circuit the functions of the central bank and turn an institution that is supposed to be independent into an institution that simply becomes an errand boy for the office of the president. I will not do that, you know. So I will set my parameters. If I appoint you as governor of the central bank, I understand what the central bank is supposed to do. So I will interview you before I appoint you and be sure that your vision is aligned with mine. as the president. And then I'll leave you to do your work. I'm not going to every day I'll be telling you, print money here, print money for me, as if I'm Idi Amin, So, competent leadership for institutions, good corporate governance of public institutions is very important, and then respect for the institution by the president. Corporate governance is something we relate mainly to the private sector, but it's completely absent in the public sector. But corporate governance is necessary so that any public institution should achieve its mandate. But if it doesn't have that, let's say, supervisory board that is active, if it doesn't undergo audits periodically, the institution will derail and will become weak. So I will bring corporate governance, my knowledge and expertise in corporate leadership and governance into public institutions. So like I said, competent leaders for institutions, effective corporate governance of institutions, risk management of institutions, and respecting the institutions, not allowing them to be politicized. You see, I'm not going to be appointing political operatives into very sensitive public institutions. I have to restore this public service as an independent entity outside of partisan politics. It's very necessary. All these director generals in all these public institutions that are, card-carrying party members who were campaign DGs, then I go and give you a sensitive public. I wouldn't do that. I can appoint you to a board of directors, but not as the director general. So we have to allow, service to matter. People should be rewarded for competence, starting from junior levels to the highest levels. So that's my approach to rebuilding our institutions.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that, and thank you very much for that question as well. Let's go to Dr. Abraham. You have a question?
Let me just give a personal example. Let me just give a personal example. When I was deputy governor of the central bank, there was a very high level official of the government. I shall not mention his name or even his position. He's one of those people who believe that because the presidency is the presidency, whatever they want, you must do. So he would call me up. Sometimes I would be the acting governor when the governor might have been out of the country or something. And he would ask me, we need this, we need that. Many of those things that he was asking breached the rules. And I would patiently explain to him that this cannot be done for this reason. It actually breaches the guidelines, So one day he got exasperated. He said, Kingsley, every time you're reading rules to me, one day we will tell you that in this Rock, we too have rules. So the day you will need us, we'll tell you we have rules. You think you're the only one who knows about rules. Then we had a good laugh because I had a good relationship to him. I would just hail him and say, my brother, and then we laugh. But you see, I didn't succumb to his entreaties. I was a proper central banker, I don't want to make any comparisons. Let's just move on.
All right, thank you very much. Pastor Great, you have the floor, please.
Thank you so much for your responses, Professor. I want to ask you about immigration.
Yes.
It comes across as Nigeria is too insular in that most of the countries that you have studied in, that most of us have lived in, seems to build their economy with foreigners and foreign income. I mean, I've been an immigration lawyer for about 13 years in England, in US and in Canada, and single-handedly I've moved millions into the UK, millions, because of people who were probably entrepreneur visa, tier 1 visas, and now into Canada where people will bring in $500,000 or 1 million. Why is Nigeria, or what's your plan towards our immigration policy? You look, for example, somebody can leave, and I have clients who have lived in Nigeria for 16, 17 years. They cannot even get a permanent residence. Whereas, their spouses will go to their country, UK or US, 3-4 years. They have the passport of that country. We are so insular as a country. The last one on the immigration is the bilateral relationship, particularly with the US. You know that there is a retrospective law on the treaty that makes Nigerians to have only 2 years visa. Because we give the minimum visa, this has been like this since about the 60s or thereabout, and it's never been reviewed. Nigeria is having
it became like this in the 1990s under Abacha.
Okay, for the retrospective, okay. But that was because we give the minimum visa, which means an Ivorian will get a 10 years American visa, for example. A Ghanaian will get, even the worst countries like Pakistan, get 10 years American visa. But we get the lowest 2 years. But there is a reason. And this policy can change.
Yes.
What is your plan towards things like that, sir?
I will change those policies. We have to liberalize our immigration policy without jeopardizing our national interest. It's just like doing business environment. Everything in Nigeria is made unnecessarily difficult. And yet, it's not as if there's anything so special that we're protected. This house has fallen. And yet we say we are restricting visa to Americans to 2 years. What a joke. Who the bloody hell are you? What's going on in your country? Half of your people are poor. So what are you exactly safeguarding? Do you understand? So I believe that we need to liberalize our immigration policy and make it easier. Because let me look at the irony of our immigration policy. We make it difficult for people who are formerly residents to become citizens. We make it difficult for people who want to live here in a transparent way to become residents. Yet, millions of people come in from across the borders and nobody's checking them. That is the biggest irony of the whole matter. Some of them come in and vote, for God's sake. But we know they are not Nigerians. So, my presidency will review all these kinds of issues. We're going to have a proper border patrol system in our country that will safeguard our country from terrorists and allow people who actually have good business plans to thrive inside Nigeria. If they want to become citizens, they meet a minimum requirement, they become so. There's nothing wrong, with having citizens who are not blacks or original Nigerians, just like you can become a citizen of America or the UK. So many of those countries were built by immigration. That's one of the reasons why their philosophy towards immigration is very different from ours. You see, we were just here in our villages. The British came, colonized everybody, and then later left. You see? But Britain was made up of a lot of waves of people coming in other than the locals. America, the same thing. America is an immigrant nation. So we have to find a halfway house and liberalize our immigration policy without jeopardizing our national interest. So that's my approach to immigration. We have to review the whole thing. It's not working.
Thank you very much, Prof. Mr. Bright Cyprian, you have the floor. Mr. Bright, are you there? Okay, Mr. Bright is okay.
Okay. Good evening, Prof, and everyone in the house.
Good evening.
It's a privilege to be here. Okay, Prof, a quick one. My question is, how will you inspire all the federal employees to provide the highest level of service to the customers, the Nigerians?
Thank you. That's a very good question. We have to reform we have to reform the Nigerian civil service or the Nigerian public service. In Ethiopia, they have a civil service university, a university that is dedicated to training civil servants. I would like to consider something like that in this country so that we make civil service. The provision of services for citizens is one of the three measures of state capacity. The first measure is the ability to defend your territory and your citizens. The second is your ability to collect and administer taxes. And the third is the ability to deliver administrative services efficiently and effectively. Of course, all three do not exist anymore in Nigeria. So that's unfortunate. And that's why some people correctly define Nigeria as a failed state. Now, so when I become president, we're going to begin a reform of the public service. And one of the ways to reform the public service is to really emphasize this matter of ethos, integrity, efficiency and effectiveness, and performance management. I've said it that the 4 offices that will be in my presidency that will help me run and transform this country will be the National Office of Strategy, the National Office of Risk Management, the Office of Performance Management, and the Office of Talent Management. These 4 offices, we will ensure that every significant institution has a similar unit similar units inside their own institutions. You cannot go to a major ministry in America or the UK without seeing a risk management department, because it's natural. You have to manage risks that are part of everyday business, but nobody thinks about that in Nigerian public life. So these are the things we will bring in to reform the culture of service, and we're going to performance manage that process such that those who show the aptitude to deliver services effectively will be recognized and promoted, and those who don't will be weeded out clearly, because there will be performance measurement, and we will be going into talent management as well. So, and there will be risk management. So this will be my attitude to how do you inspire federal workers. You know, you put the right kind of people in these institutions, you put the right kind of institutions inside the institutions, and then you bring a new set of ethos to measure them and assess them. You're the president, you have the authority to do that, and I will do it, and I will enforce it.
Thank you very much, Prof. For that, I'm going to call on Big Chief Damien. Big Chief Damien has a black hand up. Can you take the floor?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Saga. I'm actually mad that the other speaker stole my question around civil service. Professor Kingsley has definitely answered a lot of questions, because especially when you look at how like nations work, the civil service is like the engine room for governance. They make sure that everything, the vision of the president and whatever the president needs to do is actually delivered to the people, because like they're like the customer service for the government. And we just so my question is around how you're actually going to make sure that the civil service is competence based, because right now the civil service in Nigeria is very corrupt, and we have a lot of incompetent people in positions, and we have so many positions that should not even exist. It's almost like a poverty alleviation scheme. That is what the civil service is right now. People go late to work in the civil service, they go to work at 11 and leave by 3. And there is no nation that has a civil service with that kind of culture that will ever progress. There's nothing the president wants to do. How can that be done? Also, security. Security is a major factor, is one of the factors that would affect whatever plans that anyone has within any country. So what is the approach to security? How do you intend to secure our borders? Because right now, Nigeria does not have a proper border patrol or security infrastructure. How is that going to be solved? My last question is around the kind of politics that you're playing. Because apart from being, you're a very intelligent man, you're visionary. I loved how you did not bother going to the two political parties that people think are very big and are the only parties that can win elections in Nigeria. You were able to see the drama that would unfold, and you made that decision very early, even when a lot of people gave you a lot of flack. So these are my 3 questions. So how are you going to, treat those issues? Thank you very much.
That's very good. Now, on national security, I've already said that I will establish a proper national border patrol for Nigeria, that will control entry into Nigeria's territorial space. We will close every border loophole in this country. There are hundreds of them, maybe even thousands. Yes, we will find all of them and we will close them. We will patrol them with, professional border patrols. So this is one. We will also use technology that will survey our border several miles into Nigeria and outside of Nigeria. You see what I'm saying? So that we can monitor people, with technology also. Now, also, the biggest thing in national security is the political will to secure your country. So when I am president, one Nigerian life would be too many to lose, let alone hundreds, let alone thousands. So if you take a life, you will not go free. And then I will take the battle to the terrorists. I am the coming civilian general. I want everybody to take note. I am the coming civilian general. Why do I use that phrase? I'm a civilian. You don't have to be a military person to be effective in securing a country. Security in the 21st century is more than just carrying guns and wearing a uniform. You see what I'm saying? But when I say civilian general, I describe myself as such. It means I have the mindset of a general when it comes to securing Nigeria. You know, I will brook no nonsense. We will take the battle to the enemy. We will take them out. We will not allow them to strike first, and then we write the book of lamentations, as we always do. No, that's not going to be my approach. There will be a proactive approach to national security, not a reactive approach. So these are some of the things. And of course, in the UN, I dealt a lot with counterterrorism and, you know, the use of intelligence across borders. So these are things I know about from a previous life, you see. And that's why I said that I'm actually, you know, well prepared to be president, because I understand what I will be doing 24/7. You see, but the challenge for us is, and now that comes to the second part of your question, the politics of getting there, because that's a practical issue to be addressed. We must win before we can govern, you know. So my answer on national security is, you know, political will, proactive, border security that is modern, tight, you know, the use of intelligence, and, you know, effective civil military relations. You see? You know, so that's the way I would approach national security. I believe that within 12 months of becoming president, terrorism will be history when I become president. Just give me 12 months. Give me 12 months.
I can definitely, you know, sometimes when some people actually hear you giving that kind of timeline, you know, sometimes they might doubt it. But, you know, I know El Salvador is a small country, but I can see what Nayib Bukele of El Salvador is doing, you know, with the political will that he has. I think his Twitter account, he arrested over 30,000 gangs in less than 3 months.
Oh, look at that. That's what is called political will. It means that you will not allow any vested interest to stop you from securing Nigeria as the president. If people are corrupt in the security services, they must be fished out and dealt with. If people have divided loyalties between Nigeria and whatever ideologies the terrorists have, you must flush out people who think like that, because that's dangerous for the citizens of our own country. You see? So that means that the security of lives in this country will come first. It will be number one in everything I'm doing. That's why I swore an oath. I'll swear an oath on the Bible to protect Nigerians and their welfare. So I'll take that very seriously indeed. Political will is critical. You cannot subcontract that. That's why you're the commander-in-chief. So that's it. On my politics, I'm glad you brought that up, Big Chief Damien, because today I'm looking like a prophet. But I knew in 2018 that this day would come. I knew, despite every pressure, every invitation, big people in APC and PDP, for years they've been wanting me to join their party. They said, listen, my friend, you're a big boy in this country. You've been a deputy governor of the central bank. You don't belong in all these small parties. You should come and join PDP or join APC. I've heard that, and I just laugh it off. I said, well, that's okay. And it's a huge sacrifice to me, because it means, do you know that I do not feed from Nigeria? Because I have been an opposition politician since I entered politics. No governor, I don't go to them, but they're not inclined to, I suspect, to give me consultancies on things I'm very knowledgeable about and can help them with. If I were not an international operator, I have a consulting firm that I consult for global companies around the world. That's how I put food on the table of my family. I don't make, no Nigerian government gives me money. And that's why I'm independent. You see, but I could have done a lot better financially if I was in bed with them. You see what I'm saying? So this politics comes at a price, but I have stuck with it so far, and events are catching up, and we now see the APC and the PDP imploding. But we should never make the mistake of so leadership is seeing far what people may not see when you're seeing it, and being proactive about it and bringing people to that point of view, not being reactive or being opportunistic. I could have joined the APC and PDP and been in the cream, but I would not do that. And then tomorrow, when the game that I'm playing turns against me, then I'll start saying this or start saying that, start pretending that I'm some savior or some reformist. No, you have to be consistent to a certain extent. You can also be pragmatic in politics. I understand that, you have to be. But, like I said, I think my own unique selling point is that I have been consistent in this line of an alternative path in Nigerian politics.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that. I'm sure that a few of us are taking notes. And let me go to before I call on Ifa Nyaka, there's Onyekachi. Onyekachi, are you there?
Yeah, I am here.
Mazi Onyekachi, okay.
I'm here. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Professor, this is the second time I am meeting you. The first time was in Unilag. I'm a Unilag student.
Okay.
I think that was in 2019 when you came to talk to us. And so far, I believe you, and I have a conviction that you know what you want, you know what you're doing, and you know how to do it. But sir, this is a kind of emotional question I want to ask you, a personal question.
Sure.
Do you really think you will win this election in your heart of heart? Like, aside all these talks, aside all
Yes.
these things?
Yes. Let me answer the question. I believe very strongly that I will be the next president of Nigeria.
Okay.
Let me tell you how it will happen.
Okay.
One of the reasons it will happen is what we were just discussing about the politics of seeing far ahead, the visionary quality of leadership, right? Now, today, the situation is no longer what it was in 2019. The APC and PDP have about 25% each of the strength they had in 2019. That's just the truth. If you want to be magnanimous, you would say maybe they have 50% of that strength. Do you understand? In terms of appeal to citizens. Yeah? So that opens an opportunity. That opportunity, we will meet it with a campaign that is effective. We will mobilize the people. I have also been building structures at grassroots levels across this country. And I have several alliances that have already offered their support to me once I get the ticket of my party. At least 6 of such major alliances. Each one of these alliances represents hundreds of thousands of people, and they are down to every polling unit in Nigeria. That is to say, there are grassroots structures going all the way from the bottom all the way to the national. So this is structure right there, in addition to the APC's own structure. Because many of these people are seeing me as the hope for the country. And I want to tell you that, funny enough, 70% of these structures are in the northern part of the country. And I have a very significant following in northern Nigeria. For several reasons that I may not go into. But there are many reasons why the people in different parts of the country, whether the north, the southwest, or the east, easily relate to me. I'm not an ethnic politician. So it will not be too difficult for consensus to form around me as the next president. I'm not polarizing. Do you understand? I'm strong on my stand, but I'm not a polarizing character. If you see what I'm saying, I don't abuse individuals. I don't get into the mud, that sort of thing. It's not my kind of politics. I have a vision, and I'm preaching it, and I'm mobilizing at the grassroots and at the middle class around that vision. That's what's going to be different between 2023 and now. And that's why I believe that I will be the next president. It will be very surprising to a lot of people how it will happen.
Okay, sir. One more question.
Yes.
You've been talking about how you win.
Yes.
Now, what could make you not win?
Well, there could be any number of possibilities. What if there's a massive rigging of the election?
Okay.
So then it would not represent the will of the people. Now, it's more difficult to do that with the current electoral framework than before, but it's not impossible. Do you understand? There could be very sophisticated ways of rigging an election. So this is one possibility. Another possibility, of course, is that the people do not respond the way we expect to the message you are bringing out to them. Of course, then you will not win. You see what I'm saying? So there are any number of possibilities, but we are planning on winning. So you risk manage the factors that will prevent you from winning. That's why you have risk management. You're managing the risk ahead of the curve. You have a strategy, and you're monitoring the execution of that strategy, and you're managing the risks, and then you leave the rest to God. That's how I intend to work.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that. Ifeanyaka, you there?
Yes, Sega, thank you. Good evening, Prof.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been listening to you, and it's been quite educative and insightful. I actually followed you very well in the last election. And it was something I really enjoyed. So I have two questions. One is around unemployment and pulling people out of poverty. What's your strategy around that? Then the second one is, the last election, 2019, that I followed you, and all the whole issues around not too young to run, and the alliance the young aspirants wanted to form, where you guys had an election and someone else won and you pulled out of that alliance and stuff like that. I want you to, what do you think? What's regarding the credibility of turning down the alliance after you were fully part of it? Yes, those are my two questions. Thank you.
Let me start with that last question. The reason I pulled out of that alliance was not because, quote unquote, someone else won. No. It was because there were irregularities at the last stage of the process that called the transparency into question. Period. That's why I walked away. And it is very interesting that because I walked away, the process failed, collapsed. It meant that I should have been the outcome of that process. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. Why is it that when I left, the opposition left the whole thing? They tried with one, they tried twice. Once I said I wasn't going to be part of it, it could never work. Everybody in Nigeria was expecting me to be the outcome of that process. So, but if people want to go and do some other arrangement and bring out, there are a lot of clever things people can do to subvert what should have been the correct outcome if it had been, looked at a bit more seriously or rationally. Then you have a right to say, look, this process is not as transparent as I thought it would be when I entered it. That's why people go to court after elections. Do you say, why did you go to court, and even though you ran for the election? Do you ask them that? People are entitled to protect themselves and their integrity from unfairness. If it means walking away from something, you walk away from it. It's not. I have no apologies to offer anybody, and it is not. It's not an issue. Like I said to you, practically speaking, I was the 800-pound gorilla in that affair. So some people seemed determined to make sure that they would use that process to neuter my running for president. I wasn't going to give them that pleasure because they think they're smart. Sorry. So moving to the more immediate questions you asked of unemployment, and skills and so on. So unemployment, my approach to youth unemployment is as follows. My government will give young Nigerians temporary unemployment support for 6 months to a year when they come out of universities, but only on the condition that they go through a training in which they acquire practical skills if they don't have it. That's number one. Number two, we will set up a venture capital fund that will give young people who have skills the capital to start new businesses. Those new businesses will create jobs. That's how jobs are created everywhere in the world. The government does not create jobs. The government creates an environment that creates jobs. So, and we will then ensure, you see, that these are the things that matter. Skills, we have to change the educational system. Otherwise, it keeps producing people who enter a long line of unemployment. People have to have the skills to be able to. If then the venture capital fund provides them with the capital to set themselves up, you know, thousands of businesses and hundreds of thousands of businesses will be formed, and those businesses will start with 2, 3 people, maybe expand to 10, 15, 20. This is how jobs are created, millions of jobs. So this is my approach to unemployment. You know, it's about skills. It's about temporary support. It's about skills. It's about access to capital to employ yourself.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. Just a follow-up question regarding.
Let me actually hold on. Let me give you a practical.
No, it's just a follow-up question.
Let me finish my answer. Let me give you a practical example.
Right
now, I am sponsoring the Moghalu Fish for Life program. It's a digital training program in digital skills, coding, and all sorts of things. Dr. Bebanwo is, to be transparent, part of this initiative because it's his American Internet Business School that is partnering with us. And we want to train 1 million Nigerians in technical skills that can give them internet-based or online-based jobs over the next 1 year. This is a practical contribution. Talk na do. So this is just, it's a practical expression of my attitude to job creation. You see what I'm saying? I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
And the testimonies of several young people who have gone through those programs is very, very heartwarming for me. When they say what they've learned, what they're now doing with what they've learned, and so on and so forth. The training is 5 days, 5 days every month. And you just do it remotely, but you learn stuff that can help you become a digital marketer, you can become a coder, you can develop apps, all sorts of things. So this is just a practical example of how I approach job creation. If I can do that as a private citizen, imagine if I was the president.
Yeah, okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so just a follow-up question, and this is the last one. Sorry, guys. You know, you talked about using the approach of venture capital and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Now, you know, and since you were former deputy governor of Central Bank, how do you plan to get our banks to support small and SME businesses? Because right now they don't do that. And what do you think? How do you get that to happen?
Yes, that is a very good question. You see, we make a mistake when we don't realize the nature of our banking system. Our banking system, you know, is not positioned to provide long-term capital. When we rely only on credit, we have problems. That's why the venture capital fund is an equity fund. They'll give you money and they'll co-own the business with you for some time. You don't have to pay back the loan. This will make the capital accessible to a lot more people. The banks, you know, bank interest rates are very high because of inflation, because of infrastructural deficiencies. If a bank is running a generator or 2 generators for 24 hours to make sure that their office never goes dark, that's a major infrastructure expense. They will pass it on to the consumer, anybody who's coming to borrow. This is why it's very difficult for the banks to finance SMEs. And that's why I think another approach is necessary until we make capital cheap in Nigeria. You see what I'm saying? So we must move away from a credit-based approach, not move totally away from it, but we must supplement it massively with an equity-based approach to capital. So this is my thinking. Now, the failure to do this is why you find the central bank overburdened with a lot of intervention funds. But the central bank is not actually meant to be doing that, you know, to the extent it has taken on now. Because whatever is government money, the venture capital fund will be a private fund. The government will invest in it, the private sector will invest in it, and the private sector will run it. Because of that, it will not be a wolf money. Anything that you make from the government, central bank, people see it as their entitlement. They will come and look at the so-called Anchor Borrower program. Many of the loans are not being repaid. Do you see the problem? But they can buy from 100 million naira from farmers. I beg now, give me a break. Life no balance.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that. I'm going to call on Greg. Mr. Greg, are you there? Mr. Greg. Okay, Mr. Greg is doing some other things.
I can only go for the next 10 minutes and I'll have to leave. I've already overshot by almost.
Okay.
Yeah.
No problem.
We have some ladies,
no problem.
Oh, yes. We haven't had so many ladies. That is true.
Ene, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Ene Ikbebe.
Hi.
Hi. It's really, really great to listen to you, Professor Moghalu. I'm very enthusiastic about your campaign. And seeing this many people here interested in competent leadership for Nigeria gives me a lot of hope. I have to say that. As a professor of public administration, I'm interested in academia as a tool of accountability for government. But it's been my experience that government agencies are very closed off to researchers. And so I'm wondering about any incentives that you have in mind for both the academic environment as well as for government agencies to open up to each other. It sounds like a very narrow thing to do, but I think it has potential for long-term impact. So what are some things that you could do and say to academics to encourage them to actually explore and study government agencies? What are some things that government agencies could do to have their practices open, their data managed in a way that is actually is conducive for research? I think it's a...
Yes, I understand.
Okay, all right. So that's my question.
Yes. Now, actually, most public institutions should have, a research function. That the function of that function, if you say, is to see how that institution can continue to get better as an institution. And part of its function will be to be collaborating with other researchers, independent, outside of the institution, like universities. You see, this is infusing the mentality or mindset of the importance of knowledge and sharing knowledge and access to knowledge in the public service, government offices in Nigeria. It doesn't exist right now because the political leadership of the country has no interest in intellectual things or research or just knowledge-based growth. It's not a priority. But as a professor, I can relate to your question. Do you see what I'm saying? I can relate to your question. So we would say this is something that will be handled by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. This is sort of what should be handled by that office, in sort of supervising all the public sector corporations to ensure that this question is addressed satisfactorily, that there's a proper handshake between government institutions and the academia, and that they can do your research in those institutions, and that those institutions should benefit from your research in terms of making them better. This happens with the private sector as well, and this is how innovation functions. Every university has R&D, and they work closely with private sector companies. So the private sector companies donate to the institutions. The institutions do research that helps the private sector companies to create wealth. In this case, it's helping the public service institutions create better governance. So I will make this happen through the office of the Secretary to the Government. That's the most appropriate part of the machinery to deal with this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Yeah.
Hello, Sega Link. My mic was...
Wait before... Okay, wait, sir. I'm coming. I'd like to see something because Prof will be leaving here very soon because we've already stretched this time. If there's anything you want to say, sir. Are you there? I don't think so.
I'm here.
Oh, no, Dr. Kwe.
Oh, okay.
Here. Okay, but let me just quickly take Greg. Greg, please, your question straight. One question, no follow-up.
Okay, no problem.
Good evening, Prof. You are welcome. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Yes, please, Prof. My question to you is, you spoke to us on the 2nd of January, and you told us about a merger, to be able to counter PDP and APC. So my question is that ambition still there? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. I mean, it has been there and can still happen. But I want to tell you the practical difficulties of these things. I've gone through it, and I can tell you from experience that it is very difficult for Nigerian political parties to give up their identity. To subsume themselves for the larger good has been difficult even for the small parties. This doesn't mean that we should give up hope. There are processes that are still going on, and after the primaries, maybe they will come back to those conversations. I don't know. But I can just say that to my slight disappointment, it has not proceeded as fast as I would have liked to see it. And so, for example, we in ADC, we've decided to carry on with our own process because we're going to build a structure that is strong enough to win. If others want to come and collaborate with us, that is okay too. But if they don't, we will still push ahead and we can win very easily, very probably win.
Okay, thank you, sir. I have the Speaker of the Youth Parliament in Lagos State here, and she would like to ask you a question. I'm sure she's very brief and direct. Dr. Aziza, she's a medical doctor, by the way.
Sorry, sir, did you call for me? I can't hear anybody at all.
Oh, you can't hear? Can you hear me now?
The voice is so muffled, but I guess you can hear me, so I'll go ahead. Good evening, sir, and thank you so much for coming on the platform. Please, my apologies if maybe I say anything that is off or that may come off as rude or whatsoever. I came in very lately, and I just want to say that some of the ways in which you've answered the questions are yet to be convincing. Because as a very young person, Nigeria, all of the Nigerian system and government is a huge mess. And when you answer some of the questions that have been posted, I don't hear you mentioning some of the government parastatals, agencies, instruments, or institutions that are going to be available to you when you occupy your office. You mentioned something about when we talk about unemployment, how we're going to direct unemployment. I think one of the things that you mentioned from the social aspect is providing a certain amount for young people out of school and all that. Yes, that might be applicable. But the other aspect about training digital skills, 1 million people. These are things that people from the private sector speaks about. For young people, we need to understand exactly why young people are not employed. So in terms of employability in Nigeria, it's not only because young people are lacking some skills. There are different aspects that are affecting young people that are preventing them from making or being employable in the sector, in the economic sector, and the rest. So, Samir, from my own aspect, I would just want you to go further, especially if we are trying to change the narrative of selecting leaders that when they get or occupy office, they have a certain good amount of what they should be expecting and what they should do. That is one. Secondly, the second question I want to ask that is that you be president. I want you to, within the Nigeria system, I want you to mention 4 type people that you have in your cabinet for security, top 5 people that you have in your cabinet for changing the economic or innovation for Nigeria. And then I want to know how many of those top 5 people you have relationship with. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think you said you've not been on for
oh my God, I can't hear anything.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh my phone is faulty.
Okay, can you come in and come out again?
Okay. Let me leave because I really need to listen. My apologies, everyone, please.
Okay. All right.
So I'll just I'll leave and come back again.
Okay. Well, Prof, you can take the question.
Can I take it in her absence?
Well, she's coming back in anyway, so.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, look, she said she came a bit late, so she obviously missed some of the discussions earlier where I spoke about some institutional approaches that I'll take. New institutions like Office of Strategy, Risk, Performance Management, Talent, and requiring all major federal institutions to have those functions in them to internalize that culture of risk, the culture of managing risk, the culture of strategy. And so I mentioned that, I talked about institutions. I gave specific examples with the central bank. I gave specific examples with the legislature. I gave examples. I believe I spoke about, on the matter of research, I spoke about identifying the specific office that would supervise or ensure an interface between academia and the public sector, which is the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. So I was quite specific in a number of ways. I'm not sure exactly what she wants to hear. She wants me to mention the top 5 people in my government. Unfortunately, I cannot do that. I cannot mention people's names publicly without their permission. So Nigeria is what it is. And, hopefully when we win, we will announce who will be in those positions. I can only give you the profiles of those people. And I've said I'll go for the very best in most of the instances while maintaining federal character and inclusive policy. My government, for example, I'll aim for 50-50, 50% women in the cabinet, 50% youth. So we'll balance the youth across gender and balance genders across youth. This is the way I want to look at it. So, but I cannot be too specific about specific individuals. I think that is not appropriate, and I wouldn't want to do that. Yeah, not even to make our fellow compatriots happy would I do that. It would create embarrassment.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Aki Olawi, do you have any question? Mr.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Prof. Long time.
Hello. How are you?
Good. Always a pleasure to hear from you. So I have a question and perhaps a comment. Looking at this electoral cycle, obviously with 2023 upon us, we just came out of the Anambra elections. Osun elections are coming up. I think no one would doubt your abilities and your capacity to lead. Okay. You hear from many quarters, the conversation of structure, money, electoral value, alliances in different regions. I think you've touched on some of those things, how you're making inroads in the north and perhaps looking for communities where you can, again, have a surge to those narratives. So I say this because you look at the Peter Obi, defection from PDP into a smaller party, Labour Party, which was much smaller than ADC. I would always say Labour Party is one of those parties that sits on the shelf until a politician shows up to utilize their platform. I would not call them a party for rent, although we know we have rental parties. So you see some of the electricity he's brought into the race, excitement among a certain demographics. I think one in which you equally share some good, let me call it love and support. But then going into the 2023 race, again, no secrets, I've always supported you. I'll keep supporting. Coming out of the closet, I pitched tent with the Labour Party just recently because I think, doing all the needed work with building a party that can win future elections for me is part of what I'm hoping. And equally seeing what ADC is doing is commendable because I think there are a lot of people, when myself and Sega and Dr. Baru would speak, would talk about small parties being able to challenge establishment parties. I think it only comes from many of us deciding to build from the ground up. You've been doing that the past 4 years. You've been consistent. But when you talk about the ability to electrify a base, the ADC structure, your message, and sort of the reaction you've seen, what do you think in the coming months would be done to equally bring the same excitement you're seeing Labour Party enjoy? That's my question.
Okay, well, thanks, Aki. You know, in politics, every candidate, mark you that, you know, I have not yet picked the ticket of my party. And as a matter of deliberate strategy, I chose not to run a general election campaign when I have not picked the ticket. We know that there have been cases when candidates have seemed to be running a general election campaign and ended up not getting their party ticket. So it's just a matter of strategy that I have chosen, because we have another full 7 months to the election. And I prefer that my momentum, if, as I hope, I win the ticket, that the momentum should build gradually. That I want it to be organic. You know, I don't want to be a flash in the pan, and I want to be myself. Every candidate will be himself. You know, I have very significant following among young people in this country. You know, so, and we will continue to appeal to that following and to expand it. I also have appeal to many demographics like middle class or older people. I also have appeal to the north, to the Muslim north. I also have appeal to the southwest. I also have appeal to the southeast. You know, so my appeal is broad-based. It's not ethnic. It's not sectional. You know, and you know, hopefully I get the ticket, and as I get the ticket, then and pivot towards the general election campaign, we'll begin to ramp up top up the volume and begin to ramp up activity naturally, and that will bring a surge in momentum as well. I have no doubt about it, and we will reach out to various potential voters with our case and our vision, you know, and that's why it's a democracy. That's the way I would look at it. I don't particularly comment on other competitors. I never do that, whether it's in BDP or APC or Tiku or anybody else. So if I don't do that, I wouldn't do that for your candidate at this point. So it's nothing personal. It's just a matter of principle. Everybody will run his or her race. That's just what I would say.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Yeah.
So we have my sister, Weird MC. You're welcome. You have the floor.
Oh, hi, everybody. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you? Can you hear me clearly? My question borders on something really, really that's grieved my heart for a very, very long time. How would you handle the matters that pertain to rape and domestic abuse, child abuse? This seems to be a major pandemic right now. That's permeated our culture. So what would you do to handle make this menace go away?
Yes. One of the things we will do is to go into a more robust mode of prosecution of rape cases, child abuse, domestic abuse. And we're going to work on this through the Ministry of Women and Social Welfare, because this is where this kind of comes in. So we have to set up monitoring mechanisms, hotlines, you know, where people who are raped or who are abused can call into to awaken immediate response from law enforcement authorities. We will also use a massive education. You know, when we have this National Orientation Agency, there are many things doing. You know, we need to educate people through the media about the hidden aspects of our society that we are covering up. Let there be no more cover-ups. Shine some light on rape. Shine some light on domestic abuse. Shine some light on child abuse. We should stop saying that what is happening in our neighbor's house, you know, we are a community by African tradition. Actually, we are our brother's keeper. What is happening in another home affects us. What is happening in another compound, we don't do like your Igbos who don't care what's going on. We should care. But this has to be awakened again, because in the hurly-burly of people rushing around for their bread, a lot of things are ignored. You see? So I believe that using the media effectively in a very strategic campaign can bring up a lot of cases, which when you prosecute them and bring punishment, people will learn a lesson, and those lessons are publicized. You know, wife beating or husband beating and all those things. It's all too common. But how many people are prosecuted for it? How many people are punished for it? My government will not tolerate that. And we will begin to make an example of people who abuse their children or who abuse their spouses. But we have to set up a mechanism to, like hotlines, to monitor and to receive reports, and then we have to promote this issue so that people begin to say, yes, it's about time we began to respond to these issues. We should no longer allow this thing to be business as usual. We all know these hotlines where we go and report. After all, the EFCC has set up a system whereby if you snitch, you get a reward. We can do that for rape and child abuse and husband and wife beating and spousal abuse, to encourage people to speak up about these things and not allow them to be hidden. So that's the way I look at it.
Thank you very, very much.
Okay, all right.
Right.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you guys so much. It's been an amazing time with the Prof. Whenever we go to see you in the room, I've always loved you, man. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate everybody for coming in and for being part of this event. We are going to continue to discuss Professor Moghalu and represents for Nigeria and what it brings to the table. But I want to be fair to the man. Very tough times for him. He barely was able to even give us this time because you guys know what's going on with the primary. So, Prof, I know that we agreed you are going to spend only 1 hour. You have spent 2 already. So I'm going to give you your closing comments. If you'd like to just make a closing comment so that you can get back to the hustle while we continue the debate. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I mean, it's been a great time, as always. It gives me great happiness. I'm always very happy when I have the opportunity to interact with young people on Twitter, on Spaces, and other platforms. I wish I could do it more often. But as we know, sadly, Twitter matters and social media matters, but I don't believe elections are one of the lessons I've learned is that elections are not on social media. We have to go to the ground and organize, whether for the primaries or whether for the general election. And that takes a lot of energy out of any human being. So, but my closing message will be that please keep the faith. Let us not waver in our vision. Let us not waver in our commitment. I hope to get the ticket. I hope to continue to have your support. And when we go pivot into the general election campaign, everybody should set himself a target of bringing along 5 to 10 people to vote for Kingsley Moghalu for president on the platform of the ADC. Democracy is a game of numbers. We have power, but we don't know that we have the power. We have the power, but to paraphrase the Bible, we deny the power thereof. We don't use our power. So social media matters when we go beyond it to actually organize on the ground as well. So thanks very much, for the support. Thanks for the love, and I'll keep fighting for you, and I'll keep fighting for Nigerians. We need a 21st century presidency in Nigeria. We need a modern presidency that is not headed by a traditional Nigerian politician. No traditional Nigerian politician can give us the change and transformation we need in this country. Because once you've grown up in that process, there are certain habits you can never shake. That's the truth, and that's why I think we should go for something different, something new, something bold. And I believe the Kingsley Moghalu presidency represents that. Thank you very much for the interaction.
Yes, Dr. Powell, quickly, if you don't mind, just quick PSA that there is right after this.
You are no longer part of the house, so you have abandoned me before. So you have put me audience again.
I did not. You know I root for you always.
Never.
So there's the spaces with INEC right after this. I would urge us 800 plus individuals to get in there. Hashtag, INEC extend PVC registration online. Pick whatever hashtag combination you want to do. We are hearing of tremendous inefficiencies across INEC locations across the country, where people are being made to sweep INEC offices before they let them do their biometrics. People having to pay 500 now for collection of cards. I think we need to expose the rots in government. If you're out there registering to vote, take pictures, make videos. We can't have this in 2022. And more importantly, people should not be disenfranchised from completing this process. Get in spaces, tweet, yell, scream is how we get government to do the right thing. I just wanted to chip that in there. Sega, thank you very much. Dr. Kwe, thank you.
All right.
Professor, nice to always have you in conversations, and till next time.
Thanks.
Thank you.